I'm LaRie.
And I'm Nick B.
Listen, we're just two single girls from the City of Roses discussing all things love, lust, and perception.
And roses are a symbol of all things beautiful about love.
But as you know, love can get a little dirty. So we're here to talk about it.
Dirty Roses Podcast starts now.
Hey, I'm LaRie.
And I'm Nick B.
And welcome to Dirty Roses Podcast. We are diving into something that we all have a little bit of experience with in some way, shape, or form, right?
And no conversation around.
Yes. So we've invited a guest, dope-ass chick. Can I say ass on this episode? Maybe we should not cuss on this episode.
How about we just ask God for forgiveness later?
That would be your religion. So we're talking about religion and relationships, and we have brought a dear friend of mine who is in the community doing dope things. Youth PDX CEO, founder, executive director, youth mentor. She worked for another organization doing all kinds of stuff. She's an author. She's a speaker. She's a moderator. She a thing. She do all things. All of it. And she's like a motivational person just to be around because she gonna hype you up. Like dead ass gonna get you hyped up, motivate you, encourage you. Like, so she might even not be just a youth mentor. She might be like a peer mentor, a entrepreneur mentor. Right. She got her own company, like doing other things that we're gonna talk about a little bit later.
Her name yet?
Because she got so many accolades. You know what I'm saying? I gotta hold the mic with two hands to talk about her. But welcome, Imani Muhammad.
Thank you. Hey. That was a really nice intro.
I could be your hype person.
Yep, and I'm gonna record that and every time. Every time.
Because that was what? When you walk in the staff meeting, just give me a microphone. I'm gonna walk in first, and she can be like my beatbox person.
Yep.
So she gonna be the hype man's hype man, and I'm gonna be your hype man.
And then I'm gonna walk in.
And then you
with a two-step.
And now we know.
Hey, that perfect.
Yeah,
you know, I love it.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you.
So every episode we start with a story or a scenario that we have gotten from either our personal experience or one from a friend or whatever. Today I've got two stories, so I'm gonna try to go through them not too fast or not too long, but because I'm long-winded apparently. But no, so as we're talking about religion and relationships, so a girl started dating this guy. The guy later converted to a religion or a faith or a belief system. I won't name which one it is, but they do wear tassels on their shirts.
You said it all.
I did. They say Grand Rising a lot, probably too. Anyway, they were hotepping all the way, hotepping all over their relationship. So in this, he got really deeply involved in the in this belief system, and I won't say this is their particular practice because I have not done enough research on it. But what she found was that he became very controlling, lightweight, abusive, manipulative. It was a very bad, toxic relationship. She ended up leaving and having to escape this relationship because he was so into it. There was no way around it. And in their particular relationship, his belief to follow this religion or this faith was that she had to completely submit to him and be controlled by him. Again, like I said, I don't know if that's actually how they believe, but this is what happened in their relationship. Yeah. So she left, but it was years of PTSD based on that relationship, like where she struggled with being in other relationships because of this experience. She struggled with how men interacted with her, even like if they raised their voice or if they like went to go do this, rush their hair, like she cringed, and it was really, really traumatizing for her. And so we talk about different types of religions and how that impacts relationships. Right. The other story is this couple had been dating. They got engaged. They're planning this elaborate, very expensive wedding. I don't even know if you might have been the one that told me this story. I'm not quite sure, but I'll tell anyways. They had a discussion like maybe hours before the wedding about if they were going to convert, if they had children, how they would convert them, or if they would be what religion. The family of the groom talked to the bride and was like, your child's going to be Jewish. If you have kids, your kid's going to be Jewish. Was not her faith. That was not her belief system. However, they did not talk about this prior to getting engaged, setting the plans for the wedding, and all these things.
Definitely not my story.
But not okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I'm glad I'm not telling your story.
No, I don't know this story.
But literally hours before they walked down the aisle, she cancels the wedding because at this point, that was a no deal for her. She was like, I'm not doing it. And so again, not having these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And you get all the way to pain and about to walk down the aisle and then have a conversation, which was so...
No refund on that wedding cake.
No.
At all.
It's been customized.
Y'all might as well have a divorce party at that point. Like, everybody's there. They were sitting in the place ready for her to walk down the aisle, and no go.
Mm-hmm.
So as we talk about these things,
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about on previous seasons, like, what conversations do you have when you're dating somebody? And you have mentioned about religion, like, if, you know, what that is, what that looks like for if you have kids or if you don't have kids, you know, are you expecting me to convert to whatever you're doing? Or is your family going to be okay with me not being what you are?
Yeah.
And so this is how we got here. And you and I had a conversation when we were at one of our community events, and it was a very good conversation, and it was about your experience,
Right.
with a previous husband, right? About just one.
A previous husband.
The one that's no longer, but just one.
Yes. Yes.
But I would love for you to share what you shared with me during that conversation.
Ooh-wee. Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, thank you for bringing me on here, and let's get started. So where do I go with that? I want to respond to the relationships that you just shared. I'm like, oh, yes, I can relate. So for those that may not know, I'm born and raised in Portland. I joined the Nation of Islam at 16.
Right.
And so I'm many, many years past 16. I still tell people I'm 21, but I'm not. But I joined sophomore year in high school.
Oh,
and
on your own accord, or was it for a family? Your family did it?
So I have an older brother.
Okay.
My brother is 4.5 years older than me. And he had been going to the meetings and just kind of introduced me to it. I read the Final Call newspaper. I saw the brothers pushing on the street. So I didn't really know much about the religion aspect, but I just saw strong brothers. And so I was like, oh, that's attractive, right?
Okay.
And so I was at St. Mary's Academy, all girls Catholic school, already learning about religion.
Right.
And we were actually studying world religions at that time.
Okay.
And we were studying Islam, Taoism, Buddhism, and Hinduism, you know, many of the Eastern religions. And so as I'm studying that, I go to my first Nation of Islam meeting, and it was definitely different than what I was reading from, you know, textbooks, right?
Right.
And more importantly, without going like too much into the spiritual path of it, for me, I was looking for where, if God was then, right, if God was in the Bible, and then, right, we know these stories to be past, then where is God today? And for me, the Nation of Islam gave me a relevant and a current, up-to-date version of God, if that makes sense. So it wasn't so much of like just looking at Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or Moses and Jesus. It was also like, yes, and we have some work to do today in this day and time, right? In this time that I was.
So it really bridged that gap for you as
absolutely
then to now.
Right.
Right. Because I was always like, okay, I love God. I don't really understand the concept of God, but where is he today?
Like, even like them 10 commandments is kind of outdated.
Yeah. And I mean, like, work, but what do we got today? You know what I mean? We got.
Where's your digital copy? Because ain't nobody writing in stone no more.
Exactly. And like, we
10 crack commandments. You know, we got to update this.
So we got to update. So for me, that was kind of the deciding factor in terms of the nation. And at that time, Minister Farrakhan, we had just had where we're coming up on the Million Man March. So that was 1995. And so seeing 1 million plus men in DC. So it was just like power. It was energy. It was like, yes, I want to be a part of this. Right. So fast forward. So at the time, and even to this day, like I find it interesting that I was married, because I don't think I ever saw myself being married. Right. So just there's that. I was a hooper. I played basketball. I was always, at the park playing basketball. So I never saw myself as a wife. Okay. So let's just put that there. I met my previous husband, the only husband, ex-husband, the ex-husband, through a dating app, but not a dating app that was for the public. So, and this is what I share with Leigh, is that
secret dating apps?
At the time, I'm about to tell you. It doesn't exist, so y'all don't be jumping.
I'm trying to get on it.
No. It was strictly...
Hear the story first.
So this is the app that was strictly... It was a website. Let me even give it better credentials. It was a website that was strictly for believers that were in the Nation of Islam. So it was a private website, and it was for single believers, right? So I jumped on there, had the little interaction, just like any dating website, right?
Yes.
Right. And so I'm interacting with the brother, and we conversed, and then we would meet at our national conferences. So there was like a Holy Day of Atonement, which is the anniversary of the Million Man March. There was our Savior's Day event. So I was always meeting him at conventions and never really went to his city. He's from St. Louis. I'm from Portland. So there's that. There's definitely just a different upbringing when you're talking about St. Louis and Portland, Oregon. And fast forward, we got married. And one of the things that I will say, and again, I'm going to make this about me because I'm very self-reflective.
This is about you, actually.
Absolutely. And I never, and this is, I'm going to come back to this, but I think always in any relationship, we got to look at where was our part in it. No matter what the end result was, no matter what the other person might have done.
Right.
What did you see? What didn't you see? Were there red flags? Were there orange flags? Were there things that you should have stepped up out of there before, right? So that's why I'm going to say I'm going to make it about me. And so, you know, he moved here. And I think for me personally, I was 16, right, when I came into the nation. So my vision of marriage, my vision of what a husband and wife looked like was very textbook, for lack of better words. It was very biblical. Right. It was very Quranic, right? It was very prophetess, you know what I mean? And very just high level, right? Not really understanding, like, we all from hell coming up to heaven, right? We in the streets, like, we all have this, we all have dirt on us, right? Whatever that dirt looks like.
Right.
And so my image of what my marriage was supposed to be in my head versus reality, the expectations just didn't match. And again, no knock on him, but I see Minister Farrakhan and Mother Khadijah. So my image of marriage is this high level, right? I know I was nowhere near Mother Khadijah's status, but my image and what I expected a marriage to be like, right? Just, we just come home and we're just sitting down and, you know, how are you today? Oh, I'm good. You know, whatever, right? I had this false narrative, honestly, of what I thought marriage was going to be.
Would you say now it was a false narrative or an unrealistic expectation?
All of the same. I mean, I think it's both. I think the false narrative part comes in being naive, right? So the false narrative comes in with thinking that without having a conversation, right, without talking about the things that we mentioned, that it was just going to be through osmosis, right? Like we're just all going to be happy, you know? I will say, let me back up real quick because I'm kind of jumping, but let me just say, you know, part of the nation, we do a courtship. So courtship versus dating are two different things. When you court someone, you are totally bringing your evidence to the table of, hey, here's who I am, here's what I got, here's my intentions. And you're really in that relationship of the courtship with no physical contact for 30, 60, or 90 days to really determine if you are marriage material for each other. So courting versus dating, right? Dating, you may interact, you may hook up, you may get physical, you may not, you may just do it for fun. But courtship is very intentional about, is this partnership, is this person compatible to marry? Right. So there's no, we're courting just to be friends.
But you guys still physically interact in the sense that you spend time together.
Right, 100%.
Right. Okay.
But no just physical holding hands.
Yeah, like really none of that.
No kissing. No holding hands, no kiss, obviously not being intimate.
Right. Yeah.
So when you go places, are we talking about coffee? Oh, you have a chaperone.
You have a chaperone.
And what type of places would you go to? Are we talking about just coffee shops? Are we talking about?
So I remember I didn't go to his city and he didn't come to my city prior to the court. So we courted over the phone, internet, and I know, girl, and national conventions. So we would go to our conventions. So if we
wasn't sneaking off to each other's hotels,
girl, no. And I'm on camera, but no. And but I say that because I think, not to say there's anything wrong with the courtship process, but I do think you need to go to the city that the person is from. Like that's some of the stuff
to get a better sense of
like I need to see your family. What's your neighborhood like?
So we know
who your people are. Come on.
How were you raised?
How were you raised?
Yeah.
What is your environment? Because once I got married, I think I was maybe 9 months in and we went to St. Louis. And when I saw St. Louis, no knock on anybody that's from St. Louis, y'all, and East St. Louis, more power to you. It is not Portland. And when I saw the community, I was like, wow, yeah, this is a little different.
All I hear in my head is "You Can Find Me" in St. Louis. That's what's playing.
All I kept thinking about was how the Oregon Trail was, under the arch. Did you go to the Oregon Trail Museum?
Y'all are real far. What y'all thinking about?
First of all.
Yeah, no, I don't think I did the museum, but I played the game.
But at the arch, the St. Louis arch, underneath it is the Oregon Trail Museum.
No, ma'am, I
just thought that was so fitting.
It is
really
real life?
Yeah.
I did not know.
Wow. I need to go back. just for that.
I think because they went through like well, all the oxen died in the river there somewhere.
I did lose all my oxen.
Right, because I did.
Yeah.
Great River, right?
That's where
you
I
call
lost
typhoid
it.
and
Yeah, typhoon and yeah.
That's when I usually had to start over because all my oxen died.
Yeah, never made it.
And I was churning butter to make money.
and I was the banker who had money, but then I had people that couldn't survive. Anyway, so you went to see his area, met his family, saw the neighborhood.
I need to go back to the museum. That is hilarious. Yeah, the family was cool, but again, environment. I guess is what I'm getting at. To see environment and how people grow up versus Portland. And I say this only because, again, and I may say this and people may get mad, but I truly believe Portland's never had a hood. We've had hood tendencies, we've had hood behavior.
We don't have,
but we don't have
Argue
projects.
that with people that think that they live in the hood. Though.
We don't have projects. We
people
don't have,
who have not been.
They'll say the villa used to be,
that was
but
that was still
absolutely
middle
been
class.
revitalized.
honestly, even in its worst time,
Yeah.
you take
Right.
that and throw that in Compton, Watts, St. Louis, that's middle class.
Atlanta,
So
once all they.
I know.
yeah. And so again, how we are raised in our environment and what we come from all shapes our identity, shapes how we see things, shapes our world, all of that stuff.
Right.
And so again, people can be raised however, and I'm raised, people think I'm privileged, all of that from being in Portland. But at the end of the day, I didn't take that opportunity to go visit, and vice versa. He didn't come to my city. It was real fast.
Did you even talk about it though? So in conversation, you may say, even without looking at it, but like, oh, this is what my neighborhood looked like. This is what my friends, their economical background.
No,
But at that time, there wasn't
'Cause in-
phones. Was there?
well,
Well, you don't need the
camera phone.
oh, I'm like, telephone, I ain't that old.
need a visual to when you're talking on the phone.
But you don't
about your
think, but this is what I'm saying. You don't
Right.
think about those things, right? So like in the courtship process, it is very intentional. So of course you talk about, so if we have children, how will we raise them? So those things come
We're
up.
talking about.
But when you talk about, what I'm saying is like, I didn't know how much that had impact, I guess is what I'm getting at. So now if I go do it all over again in courtship, oh yeah, we're credit score, who's your childhood teacher? Are they still alive? Let me talk to them. I need to know how you was in first grade all the way to college. I need to know all the stuff,
that part.
but so I think that's some of the things. It's like, you don't really know what has true impact on a person, until you start seeing things play out. And so,
Right.
like I said, our intentionality around courtship was, are we compatible for marriage? He had been married before. I hadn't. He had 2 other children. Let me tell you how naive. Hold on. Let me just tell you how naive I was. I was so naive that in my head, false narrative, because you've been married before, you know how to get it right.
You know how to do it right. Because
I didn't even ask the question, did you get it right? Did you heal? Did you? I didn't.
Right.
I just assumed what you already know what went
Like,
wrong.
because
So you're ready to
learn
fix
from
it.
their mistakes, right? Yeah.
I'm honestly, y'all, like
This is why I have a show.
yeah,
Because
right. Because we don't learn.
we're trying to learn right now.
I ain't learned nothing.
Right.
41 years.
Right. And again, I mean, and I want to say too, I think it's always important as Black women in particular to not downgrade the father of your children. And so I hope, I just want to say this disclaimer. What I'm sharing is my experience and my own interpretation of how things played out.
Right.
He is a Black man. He is a positive Black man. And, I will always love him. And he's somebody's husband. He's just not mine.
He got married again?
No, somebody.
He is for somebody.
He is for someone.
I was like, okay, third time's a charm.
I mean, it will be a third time a charm at some point. Maybe. He might not. Maybe he never gets it right.
He's done.
I don't know.
I mean, I might discard him.
His life.
You never know.
He was like, I can't get it right. I'm done. If I can't get
give up.
this hooper done hoop me out, I shot my shot.
Too many crossovers. Just too many crossovers. Yeah.
It was not double or nothing.
It was not. It was not.
So, okay. So,
Because we just went all over. So where we want to go.
Back. So, with the idea that you never got to learn about his past and about his upbringing, all those things, then what happened with this courtship? You guys courted virtually, basically.
Yep. 90 days.
Over the phone.
He proposed on the website. So this website was like, it was like forums. So it was like a website and there was like forum. Like you could have a topic like religion and relation. Forums.
I was like, damn, we got to fill out a form.
No, a form. That's it. There is. But we don't,
Okay.
Forum. So there, discussion.
Gotcha.
Portals, right? So there was, so in there he posted, it was like, will you marry me? And I was like, yes, I think.
Did that feel romantic to you? Because it was
No,
okay.
no,
Okay.
no. And then I was stuck, and then I felt like because everyone, mind you, this is a
Well, proposals are not
public.
set up for you to say no.
No,
You feel
That's
me?
that's
Like,
because you should be in that position to where
The-
you know that it's going to be. A
But
yes.
not
and
only
everyone's
that, but
looking at it.
everybody's looking, and it's like even if you don't want to be married, if you have any compassion at all for that person, you also don't want to embarrass them.
Right,
Like you
right.
want them now look.
So that was the I think part. I
Yeah.
put a caveat in there.
Uh-huh.
And then I forget what day of the month that was. So let's say that was December. And then we had a national convention coming up in February. And so then we talked, and I was like, look, when I come to, I think it was Chicago, when I come to Chicago, you better have a ring. Like, this better not
This
be
is your moment to have
some
a gesture.
posting on the website. Yeah, you better have it together. And so I got there in February, and he had a ring.
Did he get
and-
down on the knee?
No, we didn't do the knee
Don't
part.
do the knee part. Okay, gotcha.
Did you like the ring?
It was nice.
So I
It was
asked
pretty.
specifically about if you like the ring because I think about getting to. I've actually just had this conversation with one of my guy best friends, when it comes to like the ring,
Mm.
and I would hope that whoever wants to give me a ring for the intention of marriage
Uh-huh.
knows my style.
Right. That
It's a
part.
combination of your budget, sure.
Yep.
But my style.
Yes.
So it's like I don't want a ring only because
Right.
you liked
Right.
the ring.
Right.
Is this a ring that you think I will like?
Yes.
So the ring that he gave you, did he know you and your style and your preference enough? Was this a ring the chosen?
That is
had
a
you looked for
wonderful
some
question.
catalogs?
That was a wonderful
Could he
question.
have known that though? 'Cause
He wouldn't have known
They
that.
were, but they were
But-
courting. Why
But
would
here's
that be a part
but
of it?
here's what I want to say. I honestly want to say this part around. Remember, I came into the nation at 16,
Mhm.
so I'm young.
Right.
I didn't have a lot of relationships. Matter of fact, I didn't have any relationships prior to my courtship.
Real quick on that.
Yeah,
Prior to 16, what was your religion or did you have one?
I grew up at Vancouver Avenue Baptist Church.
Okay, so you're Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
As much as
But going to a
Sunday,
Catholic
as
school.
much as Sunday, yeah, Sunday for the holidays.
It was still Christian.
Christian based, absolutely.
Fellowship
Christian based,
Catholic
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
absolutely Christian based. But relationships was never a part of my thing. So I, again, remember, I didn't think I was going to get married. So I didn't even know what a ring. What? I don't know what I like. So as much as like that piece of art, did he get me what I like? I don't even know what I liked.
Mm.
So a ring itself was
But you said that
sufficient.
when you saw it, it didn't light any spark in you like, oh my gosh.
No, I was like, oh, that's cute.
Okay.
It was cute. It was an
At
engagement.
least it was like my engagement. I went home for Christmas. He got my class ring out. He got the size, left it out. Some kids broke into our house and stole my class ring. When I got home, yeah, RP, my $400 class ring that I paid for.
I still can't find mine.
I'm mad because it had diamonds in it. But I came home. I came home back to Alabama because we lived in Alabama at the time. I came home for Christmas and then went back. He tosses me this manila padded envelope. I was like, "You gonna put it on?" And I was like, "What is this?" And I open it up, and it's a $50 ring from eBay
Oh, wow.
that bent every time I tapped it on the table.
No.
I have a family.
No.
Actually never got proposed to.
Oh,
And only for formality purposes, the day before their marriage, guy was like, well, I mean, I guess I should formally propose to you. And then going forward, she purchased all her rings herself, like
Oh, wow.
Claire's, because, it wasn't a real.
I was like, nobody knows.
They're broke a lot, and so she constantly had to, because it wasn't, it was still jewelry. You feel me?
Yeah.
So, like it would fall apart. She'd replace it herself because he never actually formally did the right thing and really got her.
Or was intentional. See, and I feel like the ring is like a gesture of like how much you've listened to, you get to know, you've gotten like, it's not even about the actual ring. It's like your thoughts behind it.
Right.
Yeah.
And the lack of shows what it's going to be, honestly.
And I think it's a conversation, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because I think some people want, when I do this, I need you to see me. Some people
Right.
are just like, I want to settle. But at the end of the day, are you having that conversation?
Right. Right,
Some
right,
people just, simple metal ring could be sufficient for them. And then others, just a band, thank you. And then others need, all the glitzy glory. So, but are you having a conversation ahead of time? Because to your point, I think it's the intentionality of what does my partner want? What does my mate want? And are we in conversations around it?
Efforts of courting, the purpose to court is to marry.
100%.
So why wouldn't that come up? If my intention is to marry you, we're spending all this time courting. Why aren't I asking you these questions about
Right.
preferences, what you like, what don't you like, what
Right.
do you see our wedding looking like?
Right.
Yeah.
One, and that's the thing. Like for us, we have a set. There's a courtship manual. But just like any manual, how many of us read like your employee handbook? How many of us read it from front to back? So, there are the questions in there. There's set questions that we should be asking. But when you get into the feelings and the emotions, and if I think I like this person, you know, sometimes that stuff goes out the window. And then you're just kind of in this day-to-day conversation, and his voice sounds good, or you know, so you kind of, you know how love hits.
So
sometimes you forget.
What parts of him did you fall
were you
for?
attracted to?
Yeah, it's like nothing. I don't know what happened.
Because you weren't getting any solicited
And
pictures
you're
in the
hilarious.
mail.
No,
They go, wait, do we mail dick pics? Yes, because
stop it.
we're
No,
gonna put a postage stamp on this penis.
nope, that wasn't happening. Y'all are the most. So no, he's attractive. I mean,
Okay.
look wise, absolutely. He's a head turner.
But what was it about the website where you were like, okay, I'm going to respond to
Girl,
him?
I mean, the pic alone was kind of weird. I don't know. Like, honestly, y'all, it's that time period where I think back and I'm like, okay, so what was I going through or what? Because I do think at some point I got into the idea of being married versus being married to him. And I got wrapped up in this idea.
I was going to say,
let's bring it back to religion.
yeah.
Right? Because in Islam and in most religions, marriage is you get married. You're young, you know, 20, 60, whatever age you're supposed to get married. You're supposed to be childbearing. You're supposed to have children. Like there's a path, right? And I think because I had a brother who was interested in me, at some point it switched for me of like, okay, let me move forward because of the idea of marriage. There was a lot of things that I was like, what is this?
Because you haven't had any experience in relationships at all, period. So now you've gotten this little bit of attention, and it clicked the thing that we all normally click when we have crushes or things like that.
And attention, right?
Right.
I mean, attention. Somebody's paying attention to me.
Right.
There's no one before him, as in like high school boyfriend or
I went to all girls school.
Elementary. Okay, but even going back to the elementary school playground.
Oh, yeah, little Dante from 3rd grade. Yeah,
he punched me and I
like down the corner. Yeah.
We shared cookies.
And that's his real name. So if you hear your name, you know, still got love for you.
Oh my God. This last name start with the P.
We're gonna move on. So
go forward.
Yeah.
Transition.
Perhaps. So yes.
Okay,
Portland is so small.
He was your first.
So small.
He was your first for everything.
Yeah.
Therefore, you had no frame of reference
at all.
Okay. Did you know that in joining Nation of Islam that you wanted to be with someone who also practiced the same faith?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%.
So if they were any other faith, even though you grew up Baptist, you no longer were interested in someone who was practicing baptism?
No.
Now, how old were you when you guys met?
So, I seen as 11. How old am I now? 30s?
In your 30s.
30s,
Okay.
yep.
So
that was my first.
16
So let me take it back.
Okay.
I had 2 other courtships. I did have 2 other courtships.
Before him?
Yes, but not from Portland. So again, long distance courtships.
Oh, none of these men are from Portland then, right?
No, I don't. No, ma'am.
Okay.
Said
Portland
the
is
last one.
Nobody want to date in Portland.
It's Portland's a little different. Keep Portland weird. And that applies to all races.
Yeah.
So yes, I did have 2 other courtships. Okay. One was a brother from Detroit, and I ended that courtship because he got frustrated and said, "Shut up" to me. And I was like, "I'm sorry, we don't say shut up." Because in my head, you don't get to have an outburst. You don't get to have a moment.
Yep.
And then I was like, damn, because I probably should have married you. But anyway, so there was him.
On that route.
And then the other brother was from Virginia.
Oh.
And he actually flew out here, Richmond,
Okay.
Virginia. He actually flew out here. He probably, like, if I had said yes, he was very much in love with, I wouldn't say it, no, but he loved Imani. And I was like,
But he wasn't the one for you.
no.
So
He might have been, but no.
besides being saying shut up, what were these 2 guys lacking that the guy online hit?
Yeah.
But you said the guy online who proposed, you said you were very attracted to him?
Oh, well, they all were, one of them was less attractive than the other 2.
Okay.
Detroit is probably who I should have married. Detroit,
the Virginia,
the one that told
is
me,
the unattractive one because he loved her and she was like,
yeah, that one.
ugly.
Yeah. So, bless his heart, he's married.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
kind of diving back into the one you retrospect say you should have said yes to.
Yes.
You said no with good intention, with good reason behind that, because we had a discussion with someone else about, raising your voice leads to, being aggressive. Being aggressive could lead to being abusive. And it's like a chain of events where it's like, well, let's back it up to the beginning. You don't need to talk to me or treat me in this manner. So, I mean, absolutely kudos for having your standard, sticking to it, and the demanding how you're treated.
But
why would you say now that I wish I had maybe given that more thought?
Because one, I was very reactionary, and to end the courtship as opposed to, let me get off the phone with you and we'll talk tomorrow. Like, it was very black and white, all or nothing for me. So he was frustrated, looking back. He was actually booking a ticket to come out here. And I was trying to help out because, some of us may have ideas and, places to stay. So I'm giving all these suggestions, and it was just too much for him. He was like, I don't need to hear another suggestion from you. So he was like, just shut up. And I was like, excuse me?
It was rude.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't just the tone.
But instead of me saying, okay, you seem like you're in a mood right now, let me call you later, I was like, oh, we're done.
Did he ever try to reach out to you?
Oh, yeah. We tried to re-court again, but then there was so much... I think that decision initially of me just kind of ending it abruptly, I don't think we ever got back to...
It set the tone because it's like...
Right, because then he's like, well, she's going to flash again, potentially, and But he, in terms of chemistry, in terms of... I'll never forget, when we flew to Detroit for one of our conventions, one of my sisters was with me, we're at dinner, and he came to just, see me, and she's like, y'all know each other. And I'm like, well, we just met like 60 days ago, right, this courtship. And she's like, no, y'all been knowing each other for years. I was like, no. She was like, your chemistry. And that's where, like, that's the piece of, like, I should have, because from just studying together, the teachings, like understanding just different pieces of Islam and just way of life, we definitely connected on the spiritual piece. But again, not having a lot of experience, I mean, when I tell y'all not having experience, like even arguments, right? I had never argued outside of my brother with in an intimate relationship, right? So like, even when those things pop up of just like being rude to each other or whatever, I'm like, no, cut off. Right. As opposed to understanding, like, people have moods.
Well, what are your examples of relationships in growing up where your parents together?
So mom is black, my dad is white. They divorced when I was 6, so I never really remember them even together. They were married for 13 years, but my experience, never saw them together. My whole family on my mom's side, no marriages. My mother was single, and then it was all my aunts. My aunts didn't have... One of my aunts who lived in California was married, but everyone else single. You know what I mean? Just my aunts and then my uncles. But nobody had family dynamic. My only family dynamic that I saw was my grandparents, and that was on my dad's side, so my white side. So my white grandmother and my grandfather, like, I saw them. But in that black community, like, I didn't see a lot of that. So how to deal with men, how to have conversations with men, how to handle arguments, like, that just wasn't a normalized experience growing up. And then again, you throw in being an athlete and just playing basketball, like, those social dynamics they don't play out. And so then I'm trying to figure out life, and then I have these experiences, and I'm like, what the hell? Okay, you're rude. I'm over here. Like, it's cut and dry all the time, as opposed to working it out.
When you chose to switch your religion, how did your parents react to your decision?
Yeah, so my mother, at the time, my mother didn't have much of a say. She actually is the one that kind of drove me into it. We were driving down MLK. There was a flyer of Minister Farrakhan, and I was like, who's that man? And she was like, oh, that's who your brother follows. That, your brother listens to him, and kind of waved him off. And I was like, all right, cool. Let me check it out.
Opposite of what you said.
Yeah, so just because she had all this energy against it, I was like, yeah, let me check him out. So that was kind of what drove me to that. When I joined the nation, so if you're under 18, your parents have to sign off for you to join the nation. So my dad signed off on me for me to join the nation. He was supportive. At that time, I lived with him, going to St. Mary's. And I think at that time, he was probably like, anything that can help my black girl daughter, because I certainly can't. Right. I mean, I had the mixed hair. My mother, was kind of in and out. She suffers from mental illness at times. And so during those critical years of my high school years, I was really with my dad. And so I didn't have a lot of that motherly support in that way.
Gotcha.
And so with that being said, he kind of was just like, yeah, whatever is going to help you, yep, go. And then at that time, the sisterhood of the nation kind of like brought me under their wing. So I was the youngest. So I had women that were married. I had the elders, so they were always like picking me up, taking me to class. And so there was a sisterhood immediately when I joined. And so my father was very much supportive of that, because it was like, okay, I know my mom, or I know my daughter's mother is in and out. She's going to get some motherly support in this way, so he was very much supportive of it.
And then when you got married, did they play a part? Were they supportive in your marriage?
They were all like, what the hell?
But even your father?
Yeah, because I went from engagement party on a Saturday and they got married on a Tuesday. We didn't talk about that part. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
Okay.
So
I told y'all, like, we can
I
go.
have so many questions still, because I'm like, okay, like maybe in short, because we got to get to the story of the actual marriage. But I'm like, I have questions.
There was no marriage. There was no marriage.
Oh wait,
I mean, there was no
wedding day.
wedding, right?
Yeah.
But, okay, right. So
Got it.
But the courtship part, right? Because you mentioned it, like you were like the one guy from Detroit. They were like, oh, you've known each other. And you're like, no, I met him 60 days ago. So when you enter into a courtship, it's not like you knew the person beforehand. You meet this person like, I want to court you, and that's how that works.
So the brother initiates it. So the brother so the nation, it's a military structure.
Right.
So there's a protocol.
Okay.
So a brother's interested in a sister. He goes to his captain, and then the captains talk. So there's papers that are sent. So like, hey, brother so-and-so is interested in you. All right, cool.
But
Boom.
those decision makers are not your parents.
No.
They're your sponsors, essentially. Who did his people talk to your people? Who were the people on your side?
Captains. It's a military structure.
But you say captains. Who is a captain to you? Is it your minister? Is it your
A sister in charge. So an older sister who's in charge of the sisterhood. There's a brother that's in charge of the brotherhood.
Are they elected in? Like, what's your relationship to the captain that they make?
It's a sisterhood. It's just like if we were all in the sisterhood, one of us will be a point person.
Like an advisor.
So, like an advisor. So if brother so-and-so is interested in you,
Okay.
he's going to submit a form
Okay.
that says, I want to court so-and-so. So it's known to the body of leadership, so that you're off limits, he's off limits, so that the courtship is protected.
Okay. I think I understand.
It's like the Dean of Pledges.
No, I was trying to understand, like, these people, are they
Like-
playing emotional?
No,
Or they're not emotional players in your life. They are
logistical.
It's very,
Yeah.
it's like
it's protocol.
sorority.
Yeah, it's a protocol.
right.
Who
They're not-
elected into office that they make these decisions.
Yeah, they're not persuading anything. They're just
Right.
saying, hey, Leigh, brother so-and-so is interested in you. Are you interested? Okay, cool.
So you do
Pass
this
it back.
say.
It is all your say.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's literally a paper.
Okay.
You can say yes or no if you're interested. So it's it's back to the not old school, but
You've been
role reverse. Well,
Do you like me? Check yes or no.
but it's the role like initiation. Like
Right.
a sister wouldn't ask for a brother.
Right.
So a brother would ask for a sister.
Dang. Could you like plug somebody? Be like, hey,
Yo, boy, call it.
Yeah.
Tell me he's
Well,
interested.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Like at the end of the day, we're all Black folks in community.
right,
So
right.
yeah, there is probably some inclination.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially in your city. Now, again, these are long distance relationships. So there's like, how do you find somebody, So when we have our national conventions, there's single events, there's single workshops where people are meeting. Yeah. So there's that. So
Gotcha,
it is
okay.
very normalized. But at
Gotcha,
the same time, in terms of the protocol, it is important because the idea is to keep that courtship sanctified. Like, so this brother and sister are off limits.
Because ideally they want
so
us
you're
to be successful.
Exactly. You want to have marriage in your nation.
Right.
You want to have marriage because marriage and family, help community.
Right.
So you want that, and you also don't want anyone tampering or
Right.
intervening in the courtship.
Right. So when you call it off, was it like, yo, Captain, we ain't doing this no more?
Right.
Kind of thing.
Unfile my paper.
Yeah. So you basically, so the two parties would agree, hey, we're not courting, and then you notify.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'll say, so moving into the 2-day engagement and marriage.
Yeah.
Okay. No wedding.
So we had an engagement at my grandmother's house. I feel like I was, y'all ever feel like you're in a room and you're like the fly on the wall, but it's you, but you see yourself in the room.
Yes.
So you're like,
out of body
yep. And so
experience.
yes, I'm looking at everyone in the space being like, is this what Imani's doing? Even my brother was like, Imani, that's a grown ass man. And I'm like, I know. He was like, no,
so
that's a
much older
grown ass
than you.
man. What am I? I think maybe 6 years, maybe 7.
That's not too bad.
But keep in mind, you were how old when you met him?
In your 30s,
30s.
So he
yeah.
was closer to 40.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I know, but I guess sometimes the younger you are,
Right.
they feel older. The younger
And you got to remember, it ain't like I got
right.
This is like your first
a
series.
roster.
Yeah.
Right. So my
The first time
brother,
you bring somebody home and they're like, we're engaged.
yeah, my brother's like,
Have a
okay,
party.
whoa, Imani. So I felt I could see, I mean, I could go back in my mind right now to that day in my grandma's house and just people looking at me. So
Even your brother, who kind of was
Yeah.
the one that motivated you to be in this, was like, nah.
he was just like, you got a grown man.
Uh-huh.
Like, you sure you know what you're doing? I'm like, yeah,
No, he is, in fact, your brother. He also
Mhm.
practiced the same faith.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Sure, I understand.
He wasn't like Imani Run, but he was just like, you know, that's a grown man, like a man. Like you still, I'm a little sister to him, you know what I mean? So he was kind of
in
like,
his eyes, you still
Yeah.
17.
and so had the engagement party, which was interesting, and then somehow he convinced me to let's get married while I'm still here, because remember he came out for the engagement party or the engagement.
Oh, because at
'Cause
this
he
time, you
lives
still
there.
not
We're not living
in
together.
this
No,
space.
no.
Wow.
So then I was like, all right, cool. And this is where I definitely was in the idea of being married
Gotcha.
stage,
You're too
because I'm
far
like,
deep
what
now.
the hell is happening? Yeah, I'm like, I feel like I'm on autopilot at this point.
Mm.
And so
Overwhelmed?
all of that,
Okay.
but couldn't even, I had no language to that.
Okay.
So he's like, let's get married. I'm like, okay. So I call, because you know, in Portland, you may know some people.
Right.
So I called somebody who knew a judge, because this is at this time, this is when domestic partnerships had just hit. And so all the judges were backed up for 6 months out to a year.
Wow.
So I called a friend who knew a judge, got me in on Tuesday. So we go down, have my witnesses, we got married
So is there, so question
in
then,
the
because
judge chambers.
okay, that's how I did it too. Actually, we were in the hallway, private stairs, because the lady said,
And then I was like, Mom, I'm married. And she was like, what?
yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
that's how
but
that went.
but so of the faith, what you guys have such a policy and procedure for everything, but then you just go to the courthouse and there's no
Like there was no time that you needed to be engaged for?
right, or there's no specific person that has to be there.
Our teaching, you know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad recommends short courtship, long courtship, short engagement.
Okay.
So once you've made a decision, then the engagement should not last 6 months to a year. Like if you decide to get married, then get married.
Right.
We also are taught not to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on
Right.
a wedding.
Right.
Because you could take that money and go buy a house.
Right.
So this wedding concept and all of that, a lot of
Right.
us don't necessarily prescribe to that.
But not necessarily that,
Okay.
but more of like you have to get permission from the captain to even express interest, but y'all could just go to the courthouse and get married, like
Yeah.
like the captain.
Well, yeah,
Like
because they've already made a decision to get married.
Right.
I just thought that they were more involved in the actual, even if it's not like a big wedding, but like the actual ceremony piece of it. Like, no, okay, got it, okay.
Because again, it's a protocol to protect the individual believers, right? So like
Okay.
you don't want to have people interfering with
Right,
courtship. So it's
right.
more about, hey, they're in a courtship, leave them alone.
Gotcha.
So who were your witnesses? Were they close friends
Mhm.
or okay? So they were people
Yep.
that supported you.
Yep. They were like, whatever, Imani, what you need? Okay, I'll go down there and sign it. They was just like, whatever you
Whatever
say.
you want.
Yeah,
So okay, so you're married.
married. Yep.
When did things how was it, and then when did things change? I mean, I guess it's kind of weird because you never really you weren't really feeling to begin with, but like when was it like you're like, this is not it?
I mean, within the first couple months, I noticed that, yeah, this is different and this is not going to work.
And
so,
did he move here?
So he moved here, moved in with me. I was still working, well, we were both working. And, things started playing out, like stories of what I was told, either his work or a type of work that he did. And then, I know people here. So like, I'm like, oh, you do this type of field? Oh, I can get you a job. Oh, well, no, I don't do that. Oh, okay. So just little things like that as an
Right.
example. Or I'm a very motivated human being. Like I'm a go-getter.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I have a belief that a man has to either be equal to my go-getness or greater than.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's that.
So he didn't.
Y'all can interpret. You can interpret that how you want. Yep.
Okay.
And then I think the other piece to that was we would argue, and like I Yeah, I don't need to be arguing in my household.
Right.
And again, I'm not saying it's his fault. I just didn't have peace in my household. And so we reached out early to have counseling. We had one of our ministers counsel us from Seattle, and we had a minister from San Francisco give us counseling.
Oh, wow.
And just over time, I just was like, yeah, this ain't it. And then, I share with you, Yasin is my second pregnancy. And so I lost my first child. And in that, I firmly believe it was due to, I think that it was a sign of like, this relationship possibly isn't what it needs to be. And I definitely think that stress played a part in losing my first child. And after I lost Jair, we were very intentional about our second child with Yasin, very planned, but I also was still grieving. And so Yasin is even to this day, he's very emotional. He holds a lot of my emotions that I had.
Gotcha.
But I knew probably 3 months after I had Yasin that I wasn't going to stay with him because we kept arguing and it was just too much and it was becoming toxic. And then
what were the red flags? Like, what was the examples of toxicity that he was exemplifying or showing?
I mean, prime example, like as I said, I'm a go-getter. I had my nonprofit. I was working in the community, and there were just signs or like statements of like, oh, you can't have, brothers around you. And I'm like, but I do community work. And like, no one's making a pass at me. Like, I don't have that reputation. Like, you ain't got to worry about that. But it was very much of, I needed to be this model wife. Like, I need to be at home cooking. Like, I am not, that's not me. But I tried to be this perception that was painted, but I was losing myself.
But do you feel like that came from the belief system or so?
Yeah. I think it's a mixture. Okay. And we haven't talked much about the actual religion itself, but I think it's a mixture. I think there's roles, right? There's this understanding that men are supposed to be a said thing. Men are supposed to do this. Women are supposed to do this.
Right.
And I think if you don't evolve and understand that the way that society has even set up how women are more advanced, how women have more opportunities than men, especially Black men and women, you have to figure out some flexibility to that. And I think, so whether it's religion or interpretation of religion, right? I think that's where it gets mixed up. There's a lot of things that people say, oh, that's Islam. And I'm like, nope, that's the culture of Saudi Arabia, right? And people will think it is part of the religion, but it's not. It's a culture that gets attached to Islam,
Because I was going to ask, because you said that you were studying Middle Eastern religions in high school, and then you talked about stuff here. There is a significant difference in how Islam is played out Middle Eastern-wise as it is in America, and they sometimes reference it as like Black American Islam, or how does
the Black Muslim.
Yeah. So what is the difference, and how did that play a role into what you guys?
That's a whole nother show.
Oh.
But I will just say this: the principles of Islam are universal, right? There's 5 pillars of Islam. No matter what sect of Islam you're from, you will observe and subscribe to the same 5 pillars, right? Making the Hajj, prayer, zakat, which is give charity, and the other 2, because I'm just going to keep going. But in belief in the messenger and the belief in Allah, right? So those are 5 pillars that any Muslim subscribes to. One of the things that's separate, I think, or different is how we interpret who Allah is, right? And so without going into a lot, in the nation, we are taught that God is a man. We're taught that God's embodiment, whether you call it spirit, it has to be housed in the body, and it is manifested through man. That is a key difference in Sunni or Shiite or Eastern Islam, because they don't believe that God is, or Allah is, man. And so that's where you'll have a big difference or separation. We also believe that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, gave us Islam here in America, and so they don't necessarily recognize Elijah Muhammad. So you have differences in how we received Islam, if that makes sense. But the pillars and the Islamic and the way of life is from the Holy Quran, and that is kind of the basis.
It's like being Baptist and Pentecostal, and
there you go. Exactly.
Gotcha.
But I will say too, I think that it is important for people to understand that when you talk about East and Saudi Arabia or Mecca, that's 1,000 years of indoctrination of a way of life. And then, of course, you put power to that and you get Western influence. So that's why you can get where the Muslim women couldn't get their driver's license. There's nothing in the Quran that talks about that. You know what I mean? Like,
they were driving back then, you know.
But they, by law,
camel has to be driven by a man at this point.
But they just that law got approved that they could get licensed. Like, that's not Quranic. That's not Islamic. That is power, culture, and somebody made a decision to that. You know, where women have to walk 4 steps behind their husband. That's not in the Quran, but it will get pushed as that because if you don't do your due diligence, you know. And so there's just different pieces where, for me as a Black woman who has, you know, claimed as a Muslim, I'm very much like, no, like, we're empowered. You know, the Nation of Islam empowers the Black woman. And we don't walk behind. As a matter of fact, they don't have to catch up to us because we're empowered to lead and be. I mean, the Nation of Islam is the first Islamic sect that had a woman minister in over a mosque. Sister Imani Muhammad, peace be upon her, she passed away last year.
Oh, wow.
But she was over one of our mosques. You don't find that in the so-called Islamic world. So the teaching, you know what I mean, the understanding of the Quran, the understanding of the value of man and woman, the nation, for me, levels it out and like brings us to an equal playing field, whereas other ways and how people interpret it keeps women less than. And you find that in other religions.
I was gonna say, because traditionally, you got to be covered up. You can't, you know, all those things.
And all that is
true,
and it's culture, but it's also not. It's not superstitious, right? Like, we cover our hair, we cover our hair because our hair is an adornment, and we want to keep our hair protected and keep our hair covered, you know, for our husband, right? But it's not sacrilegious. Lightning ain't gonna strike me down because I got my hair out. You know what I mean? Like, but we go real far with rituals and beliefs, and that's where I think, again, not just saying Islam, I think that covers all religions, where you can get real far into the ritual and sometimes be righteous and holier than thou and make people, you can turn people off from your religion because you're like, oh, I'm so that. No, like I said earlier, we came up from hell to try to establish what we want, which is heaven on earth, you know. But I'm still, you know, Imani back in the day, you know what I mean? Just a little cut on you and maybe an orange scarf. But,
Thank you.
But, you know, anyway, so that's kind of how I would answer that one.
I had a question, kind of circling back to the beginning of our conversation, and you made mention to the site. And I said, let me know about this site. And then I think you said it's no longer exists.
Yeah.
So
Got shut down.
that particular, how do you guys meet today? Is it through different sites, or is that site just non-operable?
Yeah, so that site got
and why
doesn't exist. That I don't know. It probably got a little interesting. I don't know exactly how it got shut down or why it got shut down, but it doesn't exist anymore. You know, I think bigger cities have single social events. So, like, again, Portland is very much a small city when it comes to believers in Islam, and specifically the Nation of Islam too.
So Portland, Black people.
Yeah.
It's single Islam.
Right. And so there's that. So
Right.
So if we only look at Portland,
Uh-huh.
yeah, that's going to be a struggle.
Gotcha.
But other cities, they promote single events
Mhm.
where single believers are meeting each other, you know? So I just travel personally. I just have to travel and go out. And I think for me now, at the age that I'm at, this is where I think in this piece around religion and relationships, I ideally would have loved to have a brother who was in the nation and registered and in the Nation of Islam. And I also would be open to not having that, right? But I do think there has to be a shared belief system,
Right.
you know, so whether it's, I don't know, pro-Black and
Mhm.
we all the way for our people.
Right.
I don't know. Like, this is where conversation and courtship and, figuring out where we all land. But I think prior to that marriage, I would have never said that. I'd be like, nope, got to be an FOI, got to be in the nation.
Right.
And I think now I'm more open to the possibility. I still ideally will love that.
Right.
But I'll not entertain, that sounds cheap. I would engage in a conversation and courting someone who maybe not from that belief system.
Gotcha.
And it's interesting because some of the strong women in the nation over the years, like Minister Farrakhan's wife, brought him into the nation. So a lot of these brothers that have been coming into the nation, they were influenced by the woman. The woman is already in the nation. She, they came to a meeting. So maybe that will happen.
So just while we're going into it, because we talk about how religion impacts the actual religion. So what part of the things that you experienced that maybe would have been his false interpretations of the religion that led to some of the issues that you guys had?
I think not understanding, I don't think he understood who I was. And I'm not even like Imani per se, but just who I am in terms of the Black woman is a co-creator to God. And so we have talents and gifts, and, depending on how we want to use them, we may be successful in the community and we may have attention on us, right? I think for him, he wanted a wife to be at home, cooking food, take care of babies.
Did that align with your, when you talked about it earlier, when you said your vision of what marriage looked like, and you talked about like Farrakhan and his wife, like, was his interpretation of what he wanted from you, like a wife at home, was that them or was that something else?
I think that was his image. Okay. That's not what I tried though. Like let me be very clear. I was like, okay, you want me to, so I sat at home, I cooked bean pies and carrot cakes for about 4 months or something. And I was like, it was fire too, cream cheese frosting. You
gonna make us one later?
But I was losing myself. Yeah, I got you. But I realized, like, as I was trying to be that, I was losing who I was.
Right.
And that's where I think, and I want to say this for everyone, like, I think oftentimes in relationships, we forget who we are in the relationship because we're so committed to the partnership.
Yeah.
And we forget, okay, what the hell do I like? Do I like vanilla or chocolate? Like, I don't know, and like we lose ourselves because we're so committed to keeping the peace of the relationship. And that's where I think, I'll never forget, I was doing the youth summit. It was the 6th annual youth summit. And he had made a statement like, you can't do these anymore. And I was like, excuse me? And like, that's my baby. Like that, like that was how I poured back into my community. Like that helped me grieve through.
Which is one of your pillars, right?
Period. Right. And so I was like, I can't do that no more. And so like just trying to make sense of that. And again, trying to, okay, let me be the good wife, but at the same time, that don't fit me.
Right.
And so I think that that's why I say I don't think he knew really who I was and what I did in the community and what I'm committed to. And whether it was a threat, I think sometimes people, brothers feel intimidated by strong women.
Right.
But I
was gonna say, so if you could go back and tell yourself a piece of advice now that landed you, that knowing what you know now, having your nonprofit, having your business that we guys still got to talk about.
We actually need to get to that because I do want to get to that before we end up wrapping.
Yeah.
So,
what advice would you give yourself real quick? One piece of advice that you would give your younger self to get to where you're at now, but in a better way.
Girl. One piece of advice, I would say, don't rush and really make God sufficient for you, right? Like if you say that God is your armor and your protector and you are moved by his way of living, then be patient. Don't rush into something. You know what I mean? Be patient.
I love it. And tell us about what you what do we got rated here yourself?
We done went all over the map. And so we coming back here. So one of my businesses, I appreciate y'all. Y'all gonna bring me on for part 2 so I can get my thoughts together better. Traveling Pillar. So I started Traveling Pillar 2 years after the 10th anniversary of the Million Man March.
Okay.
In 2007. And it started off as a bookstore, like an online bookstore. I went to New York, found some books that I couldn't find in Portland. And so I started selling, like they were like Black scholars. So I started selling books, and then I kept going to New York, getting the shea butters, the mango butters, the oils, and all of that. And I didn't see anybody in the city doing it. So that's kind of how we evolved the inventory. So what I brought you all, again, don't fight over it. So the body oils right here, Sexy Delilah. You each get one, so you don't have to fight. This is a top seller. So this is body oil. I love body oils because perfume and cologne have alcohol in them, and they dry your skin out. And a lot of people that have sensitive skin, those things just make you break out. So the oils are just that. They're oils and they're alcohol free. Honey, because we got to have honey. But it's important to get local honey from the city that you're in. It helps with allergies. It's also the one food, ingredient, mineral, however you want to classify this, that doesn't have a shelf life. So we call this like God's product because it never goes old. So you need to have a teaspoon of honey to keep your allergies in check. And then lastly, this company, Eat and Fresh, bar of soap and body oil. This is a black-owned, black manufactured out of Atlanta, started by a family out of the Nation of Islam. So I am a reseller of this product, and it's bomb, and it's natural, and it's fresh and keeps you fresh and clean.
And where can people order from and find you at?
Travelingpillar.com, websites, and then we will actually be at My People's Market on December 2nd and 3rd. It's also my birthday weekend, so bring me a gift.
Life.
Bring me a gift as I give you gifts. But yeah, we do a lot of pop-ups, but I would say the number one is just on the website, travelingpillar.com.
And where can people find you?
That's a good question. I'm running. Actually, because I have finished my employment at a said nonprofit, I will be based out of our center on 162nd and Stark at the Center Powered by Youth. So that's nonprofit.
That is amazing. Nick B.
Yes.
Where can people find you?
You know, I can be found on all platforms of Dirty Roses Podcast, dirtyrosespodcast.com, our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, our TikTok, you name it, we got it. And if you want to reach me personally, I can be found on Instagram at NickB_Nick B, and that is Nick with a K. Miss LaRie, where can our viewers find you?
I can tell you where you're not going to find me.
Where?
It's on a dating app.
Ooh-wee.
Nope, won't be there. But
It's
not that one. It's not there. That's probably where I would find my man at. It's somewhere that doesn't exist. But you can find me on all social medias. LaRie. It's Leighlarie. Again, and like Nick B said, on all of our Dirty Roses pages and our website, dirtyrosespodcast.com. Leave us a review. If you want to find out about our ad sponsorship, you can do that too. But otherwise, you can catch us in the next episode. Bye.
Guess what, Rose Buddies? We are thrilled to introduce our new sponsorship packages. Be sure to hit us up at dirtyrosespodcast.com to inquire how we can showcase your brand on our platforms.